Mr. Joel was a Nigerian man, 55 years old, was working in the Ascon company of Nigeria. He was a very hardworking man, no doubt about it, and very diligent on the job. To tell you how diligent he worked for only 5 years in the company. Within that 5-year period, he got 3 promotions. That was at a time when other staff, his mates, have got only 1. Things were going well. The times were good. The company prospered, and Joel and other staff like him enjoyed the good times. Mr. Joel was a very religious man. He was always serving God and used most opportunities to discuss the words of God. Then it happened. A government policy was introduced, a policy that had the effect of blocking a key component of the company's raw material from coming into the country. It was so bad that the company was not able to import the raw material with which it could produce the goods that it sells. Hence, it ran into difficulties. The company had been in operation in the country for a very long time and had over 2,000 persons in her payroll. The company does not have a record of just retrenching staff at the slightest opportunity. No, they don't do that, just like other companies do. But these were very hard times. Eventually, Joel and a number of other colleagues were paid off and asked to go. Because if they don't retrench, if they don't ask a few people to go, the company may not be able to survive. It may just go under. They paid them their gratuity and laid them off. Joel looked around. He could not find any other 9-to-5 employment. Things were tough, and most companies were even laying off and shaping up. Joel had never been in private business before, but he had no choice under the circumstance, especially now that the economy was down and most companies were downsizing. What does he do? But find himself in a private business. He used the gratuity they paid him in his former place of work to invest in this business. Though he had not enough experience of working in the private sector or being in private business, but he had to eventually go into it. The income from this business was not much. Hence, the family still struggled. One would have said, thank God that his wife Nancy was doing some petty trading in the nearby market. But again, the going was not easy at all. She had to add some of her business capital into running the home. Hence, her own business too had been struggling. While Joel was thinking of all these challenges, his religious background kicked in. He remembered that he attended a seminar where the lead discussant had centered the speech on a topic which he called dredging a river across your desert. He would never forget that speech. It will appear as if the man had his affair in mind when he was preparing that message. Mr. Joel had 3 children, Mary, Samuel, and John. All of them were in the secondary school, and they were doing very well. One of them, John, even won a prize for the best performing students in the school that year. When they came back from school, or when they came for holidays, the first thing that Mr. Joel wanted to see was their school fees. for the next term. So when he looked at it, it became obvious that there had been some substantial increase in the fees. He began to think, how was he going to explain to these brilliant children that there was no money to get them back to school when the time comes? The worst aspect of it all was that he hadn't enough money to feed the family. The wife had been standing in for him, but business too had been very slow for her. In fact, she had used most of the monies she had, most of her business monies, to feed the family. And at the end of the day, the business had, instead of expanding, began to show a decline. At a point, he had to borrow to enable him feed the family. He began to think that if things stand the way they are, the children may have to remain at home when school resumes. Though he had not lost all hopes, but he still does not know how he was going to break the news to them. How was he going to tell them that they will not go back to school? How was he to tell people that his children, who were very brilliant children, would not go back to school because of money? He felt very bad. But as it is, there was nothing he could do. He was a very strong believer in prayers. So he went on his knees and began to ask the Lord to intercede on his behalf. The pressure was getting out of hand, and he just had to pray and commit everything into the hands of God. In the course of his business dealings, Joel had been introduced to various agencies that would need his expertise when the time comes. Among them was this state government agency. When he was discussing with his business partners, Joel was told that the organization acts for the state government in, getting people, getting contracts, getting competent people to carry out their contracts. He was further told that the state government requires some very critical agricultural equipment urgently. The equipment were to be supplied and mounted by the same supplier because of its delicate nature. The thinking is that if you are going to supply the equipment and they expect that you mount it, then it is expected that what you are going to supply will be the best, because you are going to be the one that will be held responsible if anything happens, since you are going to mount it. The suppliers have been told that if they do a good job, they stand a chance of getting other jobs like this one. The only problem was that the payments will be a little delayed because of the budget cycle. The item only became necessary because of its urgency. And in many government outfits, whatever contract they are giving out has to be based on the approved budget. If the budget is not approved, there is no way they can pay contractors. But there could be exceptions. In a situation where something is needed urgently, something is very critical to the well-being of the individuals, to the well-being of the citizenry, then there could be an exception. Mr. Joel eventually put in his bid, as this was an item where his expertise was really needed. He went home and started the waiting game. While he was waiting, he was still doing some other businesses by the side, just enough. Then he remembered that seminar again, with the team dredging a river across your desert. He began to think that if he were a friend to that lead discussant, he would have thought that the man had him and his situation in mind when he was writing that message, because everything about that message was just talking about his situation, or so he thought. The man has said that at times, children of God could have their challenges. In fact, they have more challenges than every other person because of their nature. Such challenges could be any form of lack or want. For instance, you may have no food to give to your family. is a big challenge which many people face. You may have been diagnosed of an ailment that will be considered terminal. You may be looking for a child. It could be a job you are looking for. Your child may be wayward. He could be into drugs. He could be into cults. He could be anything. It could be any form of want or scarcity. The preacher told them that in life, you must be ready to meet any challenges as enumerated above. But as people of faith, you should pray about it and let God handle the situation. The ways of man are different from the ways of God. God may not give you a response just the same way and when you expect it, because the ways of God are not the same with the ways of man. But the fact remains that the Lord will certainly respond in his own ways. He told them the story of a man who was diagnosed of cancer of the intestine. His doctors told him that the cancer was the very aggressive type, that the way it was spreading, the man may not live more than 6 months before he gives in. Having heard that, and the man being a man of great faith, rejected the doctor's report. He did not tell the doctor that, but inside him, inside his mind, he rejected what the doctors told him. He began to see himself as a very healthy person and surrendered the whole thing to God. He refused to accept the doctor's report in its entirety. He has been told that God made man in his own image. And he has been told also that God is good. And that if God made man in his own image, then man too should equally be good. That is saying that man is not supposed to be sick. He's not supposed to suffer ailments because God is not known to be sick. He therefore said that if God was not meant to fall sick and be, put in that situation, then there is no reason why he, as a creature of God, who was made in God's image, should be, that sick. It has been 5 years and counting since the doctors told him that, and the man is still available today. He is still living a very good life. The last time the man went for a checkup, the doctors were surprised to discover that the man's insides were free from those ailments. That again shows that the Lord had dredged water through his desert. The man was in a desert, feeling uncomfortable, feeling out of place with the ordinary human being. But now the Lord has dredged water and poured water into his desert. Are you having any challenges? Have you been praying, but nothing seems to have worked? Do not lose hope. The Lord works in ways beyond human understanding. Your time will come. The Lord will never forget those who serve him. It is very, very clear. The Lord doesn't forget his servants. He doesn't forget his children. We are the children of the Most High. The Lord it's like your own father. Your father can never forget you, unless he's an irresponsible father. But God is not an irresponsible father. He will always remember his own. Are you challenged by not having enough to eat? The speaker went further to give the instance of the encounter between Prophet Elisha and a certain woman, as narrated in the Bible. Prophet Elisha had asked what she had at home. The woman told her that she had nothing at home, but later remembered that there was this small bottle of oil which she considered insignificant, and told Prophet Elisha that she had a small bottle of oil at home. While she was saying all this, it should be remembered that the woman was neck deep in debt, and his debtors were all over her. So Elisha told the woman to go and get the bottle of oil, and at the same time bring together all the containers she has in her house, and even go out and borrow more. The woman did not understand where Prophet Elisha was headed, but at the same time she decided to obey his command. He went out, he went in, brought out all the containers she had in her place, and went out to borrow even more from neighbors. When she has done this, Prophet Elisha ordered her to start filling the containers one after the other. And she began to do so. Began to fill all the containers up to the brim and filled quite a lot. The oil still did not finish. After she has finished filling the containers, Prophet Elisha told her to go and sell those things, to go and sell them and use the proceeds to settle her debt. The woman was surprised. She did. And even after selling everything, she still had many containers of oil left in the house. She was surprised. But you don't need to be surprised, because the Lord works in ways that are beyond human understanding. If only man will send his difficulties to the Lord and let him handle them in a way best known to him. Certainly, the Lord will not forget you. He will find a way of creating a channel and command water to flow through your desert. What problems do you have anyway? If you have any problem, commit them unto the Lord and watch him turn the condition of your desert into a livable one. Does hunger reign supreme in your home? The speaker also gave a story of how Christ fed a multitude of over 5,000 people with only just 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread. The multitude have come to listen to the Lord's teachings. Later, after the teachings, they became hungry and requested for food. Jesus told his disciples to find something for them to eat. The disciples were surprised because they have only so little. He therefore commanded them to bring the fish and bread. He prayed unto it, and the disciples were later able to feed the multitude with it. That is the Lord pouring water into your desert again. It is not your duty to know how these things happen. Just have faith and those things will come to pass. Joel knew that most of these analogies have to do with his situation. He was a very strong believer in faith and continued to hold strongly onto the word of God. He told himself that his challenges will come to pass, and he did not doubt his conviction. So he kept on praying and believing that God will do it for him. Somewhere along his life, he had also been told that if you knock, the door will be opened. If you seek, you will find. And if you ask, it will be given to you. He told himself that there is no doubt about the Bible, that the Bible must be right. All you need to do is to be persistent in your efforts and to use active faith to take you down the path of achieving your goals. And Mr. Joel did not fail to take that path. He continued to knock, he continued to ask, and he continued to seek. He knew he would get there eventually if he holds onto his faith with persistence. He knew that this part of the Holy Book teaches individuals to be persistent in trying to solve their problems. One cannot just sit with arms folded and expect solutions to come from nowhere. You've got to move. And move he did. Mr. Joel had a brother who traveled overseas a few years back. His name was David. Years back, David had won a US visa lottery, and the condition of the visa was that he would either use it within a period of 1 month or see it expire. David's monies have been depleted in trying to carry out the expenses of his travel. He had just 3 days left before the visa will expire. Joel had assisted him with some money before for this same purpose. Ordinarily, he should be left to rest considering the huge sum he had doled out before. But seeing his precarious condition and no other person to run to, David still approached Mr. Joel again for further assistance. Mr. Joel could not reject it. He could not reject the request. And at great inconvenience to himself, he was able to bail him out again. David was able to travel only because Mr. Joel decided to starve himself to see David's dreams fulfilled. But since he traveled, David had not done anything to show appreciation for Mr. Joel's efforts back then. But Mr. Joel, being the kind of believer he is, being the kind of man of faith that he is, did not bother. He knew that whatever you are doing, you did for God and not for man. It was this same David that eventually came back to the country on a visit. The long and short of the visit was that David doled out a very large and handsome amount of money to Mr. Joel. With the money so given by David, Mr. Joel was able to pay the children's school fees and left with quite a lot more for house expenses over the next few months. Who says that the Lord does not listen to petitions from his children? As if that was not enough, a week later, David decided to go back to his base in the US. He told Mr. Joel that he still remembers what he did for him a few years back. He again gave Mr. Joel another hefty sum of money to enable him boost his business. When Mr. Joel saw the money, he was dumbfounded and began to weep. He then began to tell himself that his petition to the Most High are beginning to receive attention. But that is not to say that he was going to give up or relax. The fact on ground notwithstanding, he began to knock again, but this time with greater intensity. When the hosts of heaven peeped through the peephole of the door of heaven again, they saw and quickly recognized Mr. Joel. They would have said, "What does this troublesome man needs again? Why would he not let us rest or relax a little?" He was considered too troublesome, and they quickly took all his outstanding requests and presented another way of showing what persistence can do. At least the contract has now been approved. The next thing for him to do was to source for the funds to execute the contract. In fact, he had just three alternatives. Alternative 1 was to borrow from the banks. Alternative 2 was to borrow from individuals. The third alternative was to borrow from his partners. But he began to analyze the pros and cons of these various sources to see which one would pay him better. Meanwhile, he went to the Lord again and began to knock on the doors of heaven. He prayed thus, "Lord, tell me which one to approach that will be beneficial to my business and to society." Because the cheaper and more affordable the source of funding, the better for the business and society at large. Not only that, he also wants the Lord to provide funders for the project. He then began to pray again and take his wants before the Lord. But the Lord had already taken funding into consideration, as news from the agency was later to make him know. He got to know that the agency was ready to release about 75% of the cost to him up front. The balance to be released upon certification of the level of completion. He was very happy with the news and kept praising the Lord. He was later to learn that his bid was the only one that was approved because of the urgency and sensitivity of the project. Not only that, there were really no funds put aside for this project. But again, because of its urgency and sensitivity, it was given an exceptional consideration. When Mr. Joel heard this news, he remembered how God provided for the children of Israel when they were traveling in the desert. The Bible account had it that they were short of food and other supplies in a place as hostile to human habitation as the desert. Ordinarily, most of them would have died in the process. But the Lord intervened and caused food to begin to drop on them from heaven. That was the proverbial manna from heaven. Some say that manna from heaven no longer happens. But for Mr. Joel, what had just happened to his business was nothing short of that manna from heaven. He did not claim to have all the know-how to execute the contract, but he assembled a team of some very good hands in the trade and did a very competent job. He knew he had his integrity at stake and he had his name to protect. Eventually, he did a good job and finished at a record time. He not only finished the job at a record time, he also handed over an excellent project. At the end of the day, the authorities were very happy with his performance. Now the day of commissioning has come, and the press and people from within and beyond were there. The press were to help blow his trumpet beyond the immediate environment of the project. It will appear that the Lord had not finished with him, as the Lord began to open many more doors for him and his company. His performance here was celebrated by the press. They said that the construction of the project was not only quick, but met international standards. He was really celebrated. While he was being celebrated, a few other states got interested in doing the same thing in their domain, who again said the Lord is not a listening God from what has been happening to Mr. Joel. You got to think again. Again, bids were called for. He tendered, and his previous performance spoke for him. They began to award him contracts here and there. He had not disappointed, because like he said, his name and integrity were at stake. In whatever he was doing, he had always remembered where he was coming from. He had always wanted to maintain standards, and that had helped his growth. From time to time, Mr. Joel will remember the days when he used to borrow to feed. He will not want to go through that experience again. No one wants to go through experiences like that. He did not forget that sermon where the speaker talked about God dredging water through one's desert. If God had done that for anybody, Mr. Joel kept thinking that it was for him. He had always felt that the sermon was prepared specifically for him. He looked at his position once again. This was the man who once borrowed to eat and is now having enough to not only eat, but to give out to others to enable them eat as well. Truly, the Lord had poured water into his desert. And when God remembers you, people will not stop wondering how it happened. Safe to say that the work of God is usually beyond the understanding of man. When the time eventually came for his children to go back to school, he was able to pay their fees and they returned all very happy. They were not to know all the waters that passed under the bridge. They were just happy that their school fees have been paid and the time for resumption is here. And they were happy to all go back to school. The moral of this lesson is this: if you have a problem and you cry unto the Lord and present your problems to him, the Lord can make a way where there is none. If you have listened and this story inspired you, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe for some more inspirational stories like this one. Thank you very much for listening.